We're at Chapter 5, working with providers. Providers let you access some kind of data storage, such as the Windows Registry, Active Directory, or the local file system. And in PowerShell, it sort of functions like a disk drive. It says here we can take a look at the current providers using get-ps provider. So let's try that and see what we get back. Get PS provider. Okay, looks like here we've got registry, alias, environment, file system, function, and variable. And looks like for file system, it's got some different things here. Filter, should process, credentials, C, temp, and registry is another one with HKLM, HKCU, environment, alias, function, variables. Let's see what that means. Very similar to what they have here as well. It says you can add new ones. Here are the capabilities. Should process means that it supports -whatif and -confirm. Those things allow you to test certain actions without actually running them. So like if you were to copy a file and use -whatif, then you would get a message back saying this is what it's going to do. It's going to copy a file, but it's not actually going to copy it. Filter is used on commandlets that manipulate providers' content. And credentials allow you to specify alternate credentials when connecting to data stores. Looks like filter and credentials are currently only on the file system one. And it looks like this PS drive is used to mount a new drive mapping, but it can be used to connect to more than just disks. So if we do get PS drive, we'll see what's there. Okay, there's the C drive, the temp. Okay, these are listing the drives that we saw from the providers. So you can see there's a provider column that lets you know where this is from. And using get PS provider, it tells you all the providers. So get PS drive tells you everything that's mounted from each provider. However, it looks like there's a WS man provider, which didn't show in our get PS provider list. So I'm not sure what that's all about. As far as the using the -whatif, here's an example of that. If we do C Windows Notepad to C temp, and we do whatif, then we just get a message saying performing the operation copy file on C Windows Notepad to C temp Notepad. But if we do test path C temp Notepad, it's not there. So it just let us know what it was going to do without actually doing it. And we got something similar to what they did. List with different names using different providers here. It also says that you use a set of commandlets to see and manipulate the data exposed by each PS drive. For the most part, the commandlets will have the word item somewhere in the noun. Get command, noun, item. So we're mostly going to be using things like this to work with the items in these PS drives. Clear item, item property, copy item, item property, get child item, invoke, move, new, remove, set, rename. Okay, it says we'll get started with the file system provider because that's probably the one we're most familiar with. So the file system contains folders, which are containers that hold other folders and files are more of an endpoint. But since PowerShell can connect to multiple providers, they're not using get file or get folder. They use something more generic, item. And of course, all these items have properties. File properties might include last write time, whether or not it's read-only. Folders can have child items. Here's a couple pictures of folder hierarchies. There's different verbs such as clear, copy, get, move, new, remove, rename, and set. Applies to files and folders, as well as item properties like the date or whether or not it's read-only. And item refers to individual objects such as a file or a folder. Item property refers to the attributes. Child item refers to the items within a folder. And because these functions can be generic, some of the properties, some of the parameters don't work, like because the file system provider doesn't support the transactions capability, none of the commandlets -use transactions parameters will work with items in the file system drives. Some PS providers don't support item properties. For example, environment is where you find environment variables, but they don't have properties. So if you were to do get item property for the environment variable, PS module path, it says it's not supported. In order to navigate the file system or other PS providers, you'll use set location. The alias is CD, which corresponds to change directory from bash or DOS. So you can use set-location -path and then a path, or you can use CD and the path. So the reason this works is because CD is an alias of set location and path is a positional parameter, meaning if you provide one argument without specifying the parameter name, it's going to assume that this is going to be used for the path. Looks like Mac OS and Linux don't use drives, but PowerShell still provides PS drives, and you'd have to run that on one of those systems to see what's available. Here's a tricky one, creating a new folder in PowerShell. If you just do new item with a name, it's going to ask you for the mandatory parameters. And in this example, it's looking for a type. So you would have to specify item type of directory. Then it would know to create the directory. It says Windows PowerShell did include a mkdir command, which most people think is an alias for new item. But it's slightly different. Makedir doesn't require you to specify the directory item type. Because of the conflict with the built-in Makedir command, it was removed in PowerShell Core for non-Windows platforms. Very interesting. So most of the time, the aliases for different functions are just drop-in replacements, like for setting directory. So if we take a look at, set location. Get alias definition set location. Oops, not that one. There. CD changed her set location. So there's a few aliases for it. But what that means is you could replace set location with CD and it would still work exactly the same with the same parameters and everything. But if we do get alias definition new item, you don't see mkdir here. And if we do GCM makedir, it's a function. I wonder if it'll let us look at the function. It does. Okay. Okay. It looks like it's wrapping new item. Default parameter set name is path. And it invokes new item with type directory already built into it. So it's like not just an alias, but it's its own custom function that includes new item dash type directory, so that whenever you provide the path, it already assumes that you're trying to create a directory. So that one's a little bit different than a normal alias. And just a reminder, GCM is an alias for get command, and if I just provide a name, that's the positional parameter. So if I do get alias name GCM, that's for get command, and if we do help get command, we can see that name is the first positional parameter. And if we go down to name, we'll see position 0. Also, what I did here, function make dir. This is a way to take a look at how functions are built. So if there's a particular function you want to take a look at, even ones that you create yourself later on, you can do this and it will spit out sort of how it was built. So if I were to do function test, and we'll just do right hello world. If I could spell, there we go. So now if I type test, it's going to say hello world. And if we were to do function test, it'll tell us how it's made. The inside of it is just right host hello world. There's two ways to specify a path. First one is dash path, where wildcards are permitted. You can find that in the help file. You'll see it says explicitly here wildcards are permitted, as well as accepts wildcard characters true. Asterisk stands for 0 or more characters, where the question mark stands for any single character. Just like whenever we're doing get child item or get command, an asterisk means 0 or more characters. But you can also use literal path. So no characters are interpreted as wildcards. That means if you include asterisk or question mark, it's going to look for those characters in the path. It's not positional, so the only time it would be used is if you explicitly specify it, because it's not common to find asterisks or question marks in file name paths. And in this example, we're going to take a look at the environment variable PS drive by using it in this way. Get dash child item env colon asterisk. I wonder if we can leave the asterisk off. This is using it from Ubuntu, so their environment variables are going to be different from ours, but let's check it out. Yeah, you can leave that asterisk off. That just means everything, 0 or more characters. Looks like we've got a lot of stuff here. These are the environment variables for Windows. We can create an environment variable and retrieve it. So we'll set environment variable of A to a value of 1, and then we'll retrieve it. Set item with a value of 1. There it is. And if we were to just do get item environment, you'll see here that A is listed in all the environment variables. Let's see if this actually stays for this session or if it is a permanent part of our environment now. So let me just close and reopen this. And it's gone. So if we do get A, it's not there. So it looks like when you create an environment variable, by default, it's not permanent. It's only in the current context. And here we can take a look at the registry. If you use set location, you can set your directory there. Oops, don't forget the colon. Okay, now we're in the HKey current user path. We can use get child item to see what's here. And it looks a little weird because the registry is not exactly a file system. We can also use dir instead of get child item to get the same result. Let me open the registry. And take a look at current user to see what we're looking at here. So we've got app events, console. So it looks like it's listing each of the keys and then what's inside of them. So here we see app events with nothing in here. There's just default but no value set. And we're looking at console and it shows all the items in here. The color tables, things like that. Control panel, just the one item. Environment, it's got some paths here. Looks like some of these are empty. Until we get to volatile environment with some more items in there. And we can browse it by changing the location. So let's do that. Go into software, set location software. Okay. And you can see everything in here. And then they go into Microsoft. So we can also use CD Microsoft. There's a lot of stuff in here. In the examples they use, they're sticking with the full command names rather than aliases to emphasize the commandlets themselves. Set location, get child item, things like that, because it's not specific to files and folders when you're in another type of PS drive. All right, let's get into Windows. And then we see here, enable arrow peak is set to 0. Let's see if that's true up for us. Enable arrow peak. Okay, for mine it's set to 1. Oh, it's already set to 1. Let's set it to 0. Okay, so you would do set item property. Since we're already in this path, we don't have to specify the path. The full path anyway. We would say path is DWM because that's the name of where this property lives. PS property. So this is specifying which one of these rows we want to change. Enable arrow peak, and we'll set the value to 0. So before I run that, let's take a look at it here. We'll do software, Microsoft, Windows, and DWM. So it says here enable arrow peak is set to 1. So as soon as I run this, we should change to 0. So let's come up here and hit F5. It's now 0. So you can see how to change it there. It says you could also use dash name instead of PS property, probably because it is a parameter alias. And they just run get child item again to make sure it changed in PowerShell. Yep, it looks like it's now 0. And now we're at the lab. So let's create a new directory called labs. First I'll clear the screen and we'll change back to the C drive. And we'll go into temp folder and we'll get into test. So to create a new directory called labs, we could do new item path. Since we're already in ctemp test, we don't have to specify that, but we could if we wanted to do ctemp test labs, and we'd have to do item type of directory. Done. There it is. If I delete that, we could do it in a new way by doing mkdir labs, because it's already expecting it to be a directory when we do it that way. And it looks like you can provide mkdir path or name, value, force, credential, things like that. Create a zero-length file named labs test using new item. Okay. New item. We'll give it the path of labs and call it test.txt. This time we'll do item type of, if we just tab through these here, looks like we've got a few options. We want a file. So let's do that. Done. Zero length, new file here. Is it possible to use set item to change the contents? Or do you get an error? If you get an error, why? I don't know. I don't think so, but let's try it out. Set item, labs, test, value to testing. Set item, provider operation stopped because the provider does not support this operation. So it looks like we're in the file system provider, and the file system provider doesn't support the value parameter. That's only used for other PS providers like the registry. Probably environment variables as well. If we wanted to change the content of this, we can do, since it's a text file, we can do out file or add content or something like that. Using the environment provider, display the value of the system environment variable path. Okay, so we would do get child item env. So first, if we want to figure out what all the PS drives are, we would first do get dash PS drive. It'll tell us. So it looks like env is where we want to be, because that's the environment provider. So we can do get child item env colon, see what's all in here. If we just want path, then we could scroll through here and look at it, or we can do /path and see what it is. It looks like the value cuts off. So what we can do is well, if we wanted just the value, we could probably wrap it and say .value. Yeah, that works. Or you can do select expand, or select object, expand property, value. Use help to determine what the differences are between filter, include, and exclude parameters of getChildItem. So let's find out. Filter, include, and exclude of getChildItem. Let's do help for getChildItem parameter. I wonder if we can provide multiple parameters. Filter, include, exclude. We can. Okay, so first take a look at filter. And the reason we can do that before we get into this is if I hit Q for getting out of the more, if we just do help, actually get help, then we'll see that we can specify, where is it? Looks like there's a few ways to call this function. Well, I'm looking for dash parameter, so let me just hit Q, hit up, and do parameter. It accepts a string array. So that's why we can provide multiple values for parameter here when looking for parameters on getChildItem. So let's take a look at filter. Specifies a filter to qualify a path parameter. The file system provider is the only installed PowerShell provider that supports filters. Filters are more efficient than other parameters. The provider applies filter when the commandlet gets the object rather than having PowerShell filter the objects after they're retrieved. The filter string is passed to the .NET API to enumerate files. The API only supports asterisk and question mark wildcards. So this is a key thing to remember. Filter left, format right. See how it says the provider applies the filter when the commandlet gets the objects rather than filtering after they're retrieved. So there's two ways to think about it. You can have PowerShell only give you the objects you want by saying, these are the objects I want, only find them and nothing else. But if you do it the other way, you would tell PowerShell to get literally everything, and once you have everything, then filter out only the things that I want to see. And that is inefficient because you're getting a bunch of stuff that you don't care for. So it's taking a lot more time. Let's see. What's next? Include specifies an array of one or more string patterns to be matched as the commandlet gets child items. Any matching item is included in the output. Enter a path element or pattern such as star.txt. Wildcard characters are permitted. The include parameter is effective only when the command includes the contents of an item, such as C Windows star, where the wildcard character specifies the contents of the C Windows directory. The include and exclude parameters can be used together. However, the exclusions are applied after the inclusions, which can affect the final output. And exclude specifies an array of one or more string patterns to be matched as the commandlet gets child items. Any matching item is excluded from the output. So, very similar to include, except the opposite. It says a trailing asterisk is optional. If it's included, then the command recurses into the path parameter subdirectories. Without the asterisk, the contents of the path parameter are displayed. Looks like there's an example 5 that has more information. Include and exclude parameters can be used together. Okay, so let's do examples. Well, yeah, that's it. So let's do help, get child item, examples, and take a look at example 5. 1, 2, 3. Here we are. Example 5. Get child items using the exclude parameter. So if we were to get child item for path ctest logs, you might get something like this. If you include an asterisk and use -exclude a asterisk, then what gets removed? Anything that starts with an A. So it looks like these two directories get excluded, as well as this file, because each of them starts with a capital A. So that's how it might work. And here's the detail. getChildItem uses path parameter to specify the directory. Exclude parameter uses the asterisk wildcard to specify any files or directories that begin with A or A. So even lowercase a would match that, and they'd be excluded from the output. When the exclude parameter is used, a trailing asterisk is optional, and just the same as we read earlier. Actually, it also says the exceptions are file names or subdirectories that match the exclude parameter's value. If the recurse parameter is added to the command, the recursion output is the same whether or not the path parameter included a trailing asterisk. Interesting. All right, so it sounds like something that you might want to test and play around with if you're not sure about. All right, let's see what the answers are. New item, path, labs, item type directory, new item, path, labs, name, test.txt, item type file. Okay, interesting. So you can specify a path and a name. What I had done was just give the name in the path itself. So if I type H, which is an alias for get-history, then we can see that I did new item -path and included test.txt in the path instead of separating it out into path and name. What they have here, this tilde, is just for the home directory. So instead of doing it in ctemp, they did it in C user's username. So if I do get child item tilde, it tells you that it's C user's admin. So they just created it in a different location. That's all it is. The file system provider doesn't support this action. That's the error we got. And either of these commands works. Get item, env path, or dir env path. Another way we could have done that was actually cd or set location into the env PS drive, and then do get child item path, and then get the value that way. Let me go back to C. What is that for? Clear item, I bet. No. Clear host. Include and exclude must be used with recurse, or if you're querying a container, like a folder. Filter uses the PS provider's filter capability, which not all providers support. For example, you could use dir filter in the file system. On Windows, it's not case sensitive, so capital PATH is the same as lowercase. However, in Linux or Mac, capitalization matters. Capital path is not the same as lowercase path. And that's all. So next time we'll be getting into Chapter 6, the pipeline, connecting commands. See you then.